Welcome to We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only show dedicated to the process and strategies for transforming apartment buildings to thriving communities. I am your host, John Brackett, and welcome to the show. All right, folks, welcome to another great episode of We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only place where you come to learn how to take apartment buildings and turn them into amazing communities. So today we have a unique guest, another great show. Her name is Vanessa Gonzalez. She is a realtor in Long Island. And so I thought today would be a great conversation because, we're moving into an environment right now, right? COVID-19, where the conversations, I'm hearing more and more conversations around distressed properties being REOs and then, of course, short sales. So Vanessa is someone that transacts a lot in those two areas of real estate. So I thought this would be a good conversation just to share another perspective from somebody who's actually active in the role of an asset manager, managing through those types of transactions. So I am your host, John Brackett. Welcome to the show, Vanessa. How are you?
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me.
Good. Awesome. Hey, so share a little bit about your background. Okay. If you can tell your story, share your background, tell your story. I think that'd be a great way to start this off.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am a real estate agent for the last 17 years, and I am blessed enough to be able to stay in business for all this time, especially during the times that most of the agents had to go and find something else because we went through a crash. And I was blessed enough to connect through all this crash. I lost my house. My first house, I bought it when I was 19, going on 20 years old. And I also went through the crash, and I short sell it. And I think I connected pretty good and pretty well with the whole process. And that took me to start doing a lot of short sales. I will say at that time, my inventory was 80% short sales. And then I got into the REO business, still managing my residential and my first-time home buyers, and able to also do some loss mitigation. So I do pretty much the 4 channels of real estate: residential, the buyer side. First times are my lovers. I love them. And then I go with the short sales and the REO that are part of my daily life.
Okay, perfect. So talk a little bit about the difference between an REO and a short sale for our audience, right? Just talk about the differences there. And this is why I thought this would be a great conversation, because right now we're moving into a marketplace where REOs and short sales are starting to tick up a little bit more than they have been. And there's speculation right now that they're going to go up even further. So can you talk a little bit about that? I mean,
sure.
The feedback from New York is very different, right? What's going on in New York is very different than what's going on, say, for example, in LA or San Diego, right? Very different markets.
Absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about that, what you're seeing right now in the world of REOs and short sales, and then, to share the differences between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think people sometimes get them confused. I think it comes from the same channel, and it really doesn't. The short sale, you have to prepare a package, right? The short sale is a situation where the borrower, which seller as well, decide to go and present a short sale approved by the bank. And that doesn't really mean that the price that we're listing the house or that the seller wants to list the house is the one that we're going to close, right? The bank is going to review contracts. Everything is going to be, right now, New York is not using anymore the HUD, but we are doing some closing statements and still sending HUDs for the banks because they do want to review that. And that's the only way they do it. And we have to prepare all that and go through the terms and present proof of funds. And at the end of the day, they're going to send a BPO, right? The broker price opinion. Sometimes makes sense, and sometimes it really doesn't make sense. They send people out of town that they have no idea what a ranch is, and then you have a value that you're like, okay, where this number came from. And you have to dispute the value. You have to send inspection. You have to see if they would like to be open to any escalation for this file. Right now, I'm seeing, and I'm part of a few servicers where they are saying no to short sales. They don't want to take short sales. They say, no, we're not doing short sales. We are offering a Deedinlieu review, or we are offering a modification.
Interesting. So they're offering a Deedinlieu,
yeah,
and a modification. So talk a little bit about that. Why do you think they're saying no to short sales right now in this marketplace, but offering a Deedinlieu?
Well, everything goes back to the cash flow and the cash net that they are going to have at the end of the day, right? Mm-hmm. There are so many things behind the scene. You have insurance, you have some money that was already, an agreement that was already made between servicers that when they got into lawsuits, one of them said, okay, this pool, when you buy that, you're going to have this amount of money from the FDIC because this is what we were granted. And more and more and more that I will tell you, I don't think we're going to ever learn everything that goes really behind the scene, right? So then you have multiple parties in there. You have the note holder, you have the servicer, you have the hedge fund sometimes, and you have the asset management, right? And sometimes they're not even in the same state. Okay, then you see, okay, this is how it's going to go from this until we get there. Everything could happen. So I will tell you, the numbers have to, right now, the VPOs, when they send me VPOs, they say, Vanessa, we want market value. They decline many VPOs as is. They say, we want the market value. The reason being because we're going to start doing the renovations that are needed. Maybe not to sell them top notch and just wow, so we don't gonna get top dollar, but we're probably gonna, leave them moving condition, $30,000-$40,000 below market, below top notch.
Okay, so let me clarify some of what you said. Right. So when you talked about a short sale, the biggest difference with a short sale is that a buyer is requesting to purchase the property below what's owed on it. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So below what's owed on it, and your role is that of an asset manager, right? So when a bank comes to you, for example, they say, okay, Vanessa, we want you to give us an idea. We want a proposed value of this property, assuming that we fix it up, right? You don't want an as-is value, especially if you need a lot of work. What we're asking for you to do is to give us a proposed value for what it would sell for, assuming that we did X, Y, and Z to the property, assuming that we renovated it, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going out there now and you're getting more requests for that type of appraisal versus an as-is appraisal, which makes sense, right? I think banks are a little smarter now. Lenders have a lot more experience going through a market like this. And to your point, you never really know now who owns the note because you have a lot of folks coming in buying notes predominantly for investment purposes, right? Especially in distress situations like we're kind of going through right now. So that makes a lot of sense. I'm here working out of my home, so I have my dogs barking. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. So now here's the question. It sounds like right now you're seeing a lot more, or are you seeing a lot more proposed short sales and a lot more REOs? What are you seeing a lot of right now? What's kind of trending right now in your world?
You see right now, and again, this goes back to the short sales. The short sales are pending sales that you really don't know the number until the bank comes and say, okay, right? Right. So pretty much it's a pending sale that you never know what's going to happen. That's why sometimes an investor comes in place and is way better just because they have no emotions. They don't need to move in. They just want to buy it, fix it, and sell it, right? Sure. So that's one thing I want to just clarify. The buyer doesn't come and propose. The one that comes and say, okay, I want to try to get rid of this before I get foreclosed on it is the seller. Okay? Sellers need to understand that they own the loan. At that time, they're responsible for the loan, but the owner of the loan is the bank. Okay, and they have to say the final yes. Okay, and
the bank has to approve the short sale.
Yeah, they have the final guess. If they say no, regardless what the homeowner, the one on deed, the borrower, that the seller wants to do, you can't force them. Like you're not gonna have a bank say yes just because you want to as a homeowner, right? So that's one thing I want to clarify. But then
so where does the homeowner come into play in that? So someone's proposing to purchase the property for less than what's owed on it. The homeowner has to approve that. They have to be agreeable with that. But ultimately, the bank has to approve the short sale, right? So what is the homeowner's role in that process?
The homeowner role is pretty much looking for solution of the situation that they are currently in, right? Like they want to start fresh. They want to fix their credit. They want to they want to just get out of the hole that they are. But they're not going to force the bank to approve. Now, a lot of people ask this question. You have sometimes investors that are new, and there's nothing wrong, but they always ask, and I don't know why. I never ask why. How much do they owe? When I'm actually on the bank side, we really don't even look at it. We go by market value. You could owe $1 million as a homeowner, right? Mm-hmm. And the buyer has nothing to do with that. And they're never going to really figure out for how much they bought the loan for, because they buy pools. They don't buy one loan at a time.
Sure.
And there is an old saying out there, because I'm sure they bought it for 20 cents on a dollar. You don't even know that. That's how it used to be. That was the old way to do business. We are in such of a new era, pretty much. They don't even go by the 20 cents on a dollar anymore on a specific property, or the 50 cents on a dollar. So everything is unique. Every file, every loan, every asset is unique. Everything is different and is analyzed like one by one. And again, this goes when you have some servicers and banks that have a department for each of its own. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the big monsters that before didn't even know what a short sale department was, and then created them, and then lost every package every month. So, everything goes by bank. Now in New York, it's going to take us a long time. I mean, longer than the rest of the country, as you know. I mean, we don't really go straight into default and then straight into foreclosure. We have to pass by many jurisdictional process, and we are not seeing that many now. I will tell you that our numbers are really good and high right now. I mean, the best time to sell right now is this time. You will never get more money, and this won't last forever.
Let's talk about that, Vanessa. So what are the trends that you're seeing right now? Are you seeing an uptick in foreclosures? What are you seeing right now? What are the trends, right? Because you're in a unique position where you have banks coming to you, asking you for BPOs, and then you also serve as an asset manager as well for banks, right? Or lenders. Evaluating the asset that they're trying to figure out what to do with. Okay. So what are the trends that you're seeing right now that may have been different before COVID-19 hit?
Well, this market, regular market, residential, my regular sellers and the banks are getting above asking. Properties are no less than in the market more than 3-4 days. We leave them in the market for 1 week or 1 week and a half, just to give them an opportunity to get highest and best. There are lines. Right now, I don't think we're really gonna see any hole right now for the next 3 to 6 months, honestly.
What? I'm sorry? We're not going to see any what? Or you're not
We're not going to see any downside. We're not going to see the market crash and the market go low. We're not going to see any of that. We're still getting really high offers. I mean, it's incredible. And then you sit there and you're like, okay, this house meets everything. Even the foreclosures, the as-is properties, you see investors coming and offering a crazy amount of numbers.
So I'm sure that's driven predominantly by the low interest rates, right? So low interest rates,
Yeah, it's very though.
Yeah. Perception is that, hey, this asset is less, it's more affordable for me, so therefore I'm willing to pay more. And that's driving more demand for that asset. And so consequently, you're getting multiple offers on it. I totally get that. And so at what point does that become unhealthy for our marketplace, right? Or for the market that you're in?
Honestly, I believe it is unhealthy right now. I mean, personally, and I know a lot of agents won't like this, but I don't think, you have all this craziness going on, and then the sellers, whether it's a bank or a homeowner, they, you have an offer for a house for, let's say, for $490, and the house comes in appraised for $477. You need to understand that was the max number that you are going to get regardless in any market. Before this, your house probably was $430. So you should be on your knees thanking God. Okay, this is amazing. But here they are with a bank or and I had situations with the bank reps that I'm like, no, this is not happening. Okay. And they're like, but why? This is a pending for X amount of dollars. But pending doesn't mean close. We need to wait for the appraisal. And what took this number, why this number took place to begin with was the crazy amount of buyers that were fighting for this property and overbidding, with no comparables to, support this number.
But there's the, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit. There's the other side of that equation too, right? Where, a market is dictated by what a buyer is willing to pay and what a seller is willing to accept, right? And so at some point, if we really believe in a free market, right, then we should accept the idea that, value is dictated by buyer and seller. And of course, the appraisal process is really designed for the lender, right? It's really designed as a third party coming in, helping to validate that there's no undue process in those two parties coming to a price with undue influence, right? That's kind of the idea. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I think it's very difficult now to manipulate the process of price when you have a buyer pool that's fairly sophisticated and a seller pool that's fairly sophisticated or aware, right? Because then you can argue that, okay, if someone is willing to offer, if you start out at $500,000 on a property and you have buyers that are willing to offer $6 million, then in theory, okay, based on that time period, that property in theory could be worth $600,000 as long as there was no undue process to get to that price, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Let me tell you that I was laughing because I call one of the guys that I work for, my godfather, and the VP, he's kind of like the ones that runs most of the things. And he will say things like, this. So I'm ready for it.
I get it.
And let me tell you, when I wear the hat for the bank, of course, that's the hat that I have to wear, and that's how I have to think, Like I say, my position sometimes, I could be, like my son says, you're like either white or black. You don't go in between. And I say, absolutely, that's my life. But that's understandable if you don't need to go through that process and you are negotiating that from the very beginning, right? Sadly, this is not what we have here. We have buyers that need to get the loan approved to buy. Okay? They're not coming. These are not cash buyers that are coming and just offering you what you would love to get. Because I would love to get $1 million for every property, even if it's a 300 property, right? 300,000. But we can't. Okay? We can't because these people don't have all this amount of money to close. So now I love that. But how are we going to overcome the whole situation about the financing that you accepted it at the beginning?
Sure.
Tell me how we jump from, and again, I agree, okay, the demand and whatever the sellers and the buyers agree to, that's what really dictates the market, 100%. But now how are we going to close? If you give me an answer, I will always stick to this point of view.
Meaning, how are we going to close without any financing involved?
How are we going to close from the 490 to the 477? How this difference is going to come? Where is it going to come from? Yes.
So they
need the financing to close. And it's not that they're not willing to pay you the 490. They would love to pay you the 490. But the bank, the appraisal, the certified appraisal is saying, we have no comparables for this at 490.
Okay, but that's how it should work, right? Because if the bank is saying, hey, look, we have nothing to support this value, we have nothing to support the fact that this property is worth 490 because you're willing to pay 490, but ultimately we're the ones providing you with the loan and we still need to secure our position. So unless you're willing to come in with more equity, the answer is this is the value, right? This is the value. Okay, but here's the other side of this too, right, Vanessa, is that financing really helps dictate value, right? In other words, the more buyers you have that can actually afford to pay the price for a particular asset, the conditions that allow that buyer pool to be able to buy helps dictate price. Mm-hmm. That's why oftentimes the asset that we're, depending on the asset type is very important too, right? Because, if you have an asset that's really marketable, the larger the buyer pool you have, the more marketable the asset, and typically the more demand that asset is going to generate just because you have a larger buyer pool, right? Supply and demand. Okay, here's the other side of this too, though, right? Oftentimes in the residential markets, single-family residential properties, a lot of these loans are being guaranteed by the federal government. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we have these loans that are being guaranteed behind the scenes, and you talked about this a little bit earlier. So that in and of itself is driving a lot of the ability for buyers to purchase, right? That's why real estate in this market is such, it's such a high appreciating asset because the government or the federal government has positioned loans in such a way with lenders that you and I as taxpayers, all of us, we're taking on a lot of that risk, right? So that if for some reason a lender goes into default, a good portion of that loan is still guaranteed, right, by the federal government, meaning you and I tax dollars. So it's kind of a weird cycle, and I don't think a lot of people understand that.
100%.
I think what's most important or more important is to ask the question, okay, if I'm an investor, if you and I are investors and you get to represent a lot of them, how do I start thinking about this market or these markets and these loans and the guarantees, right? How do I start thinking about these markets so that I can position myself to take advantage of this, right? And to be able to create wealth. Because if we stay on the sidelines and, we just start pointing fingers and saying, hey, this is crazy, I'm not sure how this is working, right? Or we act like a bunch of victims, we can't grow and we can't evolve, right? We can't be a part of a process that ultimately we can use to our advantage. So how would you guide or advise investors out there that are listening right now? How do you advise them to position themselves to take advantage of what most people will see as chaos or confusion or a process that really doesn't make much sense right now? So how would you, guide an investor, being that you deal with these banks and these lenders all the time, right? What would be your comments there?
Yeah, not like a lot of banks, not yet, probably soon. But I will tell you, we need, and when you say so important, we need all these cycles, right? We don't like them at the beginning, but when we are in, we love them. We need them to become better and to get the flow. Everything goes up and down, and it's a cycle. Every 10 years, you're going to see this happening, right? And it's not how it happened before, and it will happen, all the time. So I told everybody, this is the right time to start making up things. Like, you need your hard lender in place. You need everything in place. You need to get some cash flow right now and be ready, at least here in New York, in Long Island, because New York, I mean, I don't know all New York, but Suffolk County, you see a lot of investors still buying properties and making profit and good properties. Okay.
Sure.
So remember, it's not only about the default properties, the distressed properties. You have other ways to get these houses. Okay. We're going to see probably another 12 months where the market is not going to be with a lot of short sales and a lot of REOs coming back, because we are right now on hold. You know, December, this is the month that the governor just say, okay, right now we're going to lift the FHAs and the foreclosures and blah, 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 right? So everything is on hold here. I don't know, again, the rest of the country, but I know 2021 is going to be an amazing year for all these great investors.
And why do you say that?
Because what happens after you going through pain, after you closing a cycle of pain? You need to renew, right? You need to refresh. You just start thinking clear and you just want to move on, right? Because you were stuck. So it's the same thing. We're going through so much. We are all humans. So emotions, one way or another, dictates what we're going to do next.
Yeah, you know what? That's such a smart comment. That really is.
Okay.
So a lot of people will talk about the technical mechanics of a transaction, but very few will talk about kind of the socioeconomics that go behind that, right? The psychology behind a transaction, especially in the residential markets. And it's very emotion driven. So yeah, please continue on, because I think that's a very smart comment.
And I think that's what made me a little different with the REO market that is pretty much dominated by men here in Suffolk County. Okay. And is that, I mean, I don't see the REO, and I always say, I broke the old into, and I bring in the new REO way. And the new REO connection and relationship. I still have connection with the borrowers that were foreclosed on that I had to evict. Not with all of them, but with 99% of them. And it's always one that probably won't love it. And it's because it's an emotional transaction, okay? You're always going to need to close that cycle. You're always going to need the compassion and the relief to move on. So what's going to happen, the inventory is going to start to pop. And then when you are lost, when you are in pain, I consider myself a strong personality, but I'm very sensitive and I'm so moody as well. I don't even want to walk.
You a strong personality? No way. I
think so. And I'm very emotional and I don't want to do anything. So imagine these people that lost their jobs, that lost their loved ones, that right now don't even know where to go. Everybody takes things so differently. The banks, I mean, I call my servicer just because I wanted to know. I don't work for my servicer. And I call my mortgage company. And believe it or not, they told me that the help that they were giving me and offering me was not to pay the 3 months. But the next month, I had to come up with the 3 months. I wanted to tell the lady, but I know that the lady has nothing to do with it. But I just say, listen, I want you to record this call. I know you will probably never be heard by the CEO. But how dumb is this? How you expect somebody that don't have for this month to come up with 3 months in the next 3 months? You are just taking all these people back into send a package to see if you qualify for a modification later on.
It's just deferring the pain, right? Deferring the problem. So I agree. And that's why I really appreciate what you said, that you're saying, hey, 2021 can work out to be a very high transaction year for a lot of different people if they're prepared to be able to be involved in that process, right? Okay. So with that being said, though, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying, hey, John, the reason why I feel strongly about that is a lot of these problems have been deferred, right? The governor, or in this case, your governor, has put a moratorium on foreclosures, evictions, like many other states in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And you have all of this is starting to pent up, right? You have all of this pent up supply that's trying to find an exit, trying to find a way out. And what you're saying is, hey, John, I think that way out is going to start happening next year.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna see a lot of homeowners that they just don't want to continue here. Okay,
they want out.
Yeah, it's heavy. I mean, when this happened, I looked through the window and I say, man, I maybe should just follow my dream, and I just maybe should move to Florida, because honestly, I mean, what happened if we all died in a year? You know?
I see what you're saying. I see.
Also, because this is a combination. I mean, this is not a one place or one situation that you have to really look into, right? You're going to have to look into all emotions and feelings, and that's going to be number one. Number one. Forget about the foreclosure stage and the steps and all that, because there are going to be so confused or probably clear. Whatever stage you find that opportunity is going to be great. Obviously, acting with good faith. Remember, I always say it's always an opportunity to make money. But just do it with the good intentions.
Sure.
Don't try to eat the pie on your own. Okay? Because the abuse is no good.
Okay, so where do you, in 2021, where do you see the opportunity for acquisitions from the viewpoint of an investor? Okay.
See, I'm a person of opportunities, unless I am in one of those days that I'm like, But I think you're going to have opportunities all over. Just knocking on a house that you see that doesn't look good anymore. I mean, I drive around a lot, and I pay attention when the landscaping is not looking the same. Something is happening, right? So find the need. Feeling the need.
Sure.
Providing that. So I think investors right now has to switch it a little, and just instead of like waiting for the listing to come up or calling the area agents that they see and the short sale agents that don't see and trying to offer, if you give me the deal, I list with you. That is already old. Everybody is saying that and expecting that. And my head is like, so what do you think? And I'm sure all the agents think the same way. Right. I think more about now innovating the way you communicate, not only with the agent, but also with the homeowners, at that point, the sellers, right? Because this is going to be a team effort to bring this into a great business opportunity and a real change. Is going to be a team effort.
Interesting.
So your school, the parties, the team that you're going to have behind, I'm already starting with my team. Thinking, okay, so how are we going to run it differently? How are we going to connect? Because I'm going to bring, and I'm telling you, I'm going to bring the short sale channel straight connected with the homeowners. That has nothing to do with my bank, because probably my banks are going to take a little longer because we have to go through the process.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate that. I think very insightful, right? But insightful from the viewpoint of understanding kind of the emotional attachment that homeowners have with selling their property. And if I'm hearing you correctly, what you were saying is, hey, John, if you can connect with the homeowner, the seller, on an emotional level, it puts you in a position where you can just present a lot more options, but do it in a way that has the interest of that person in mind, which I agree with. I always feel like if you're approaching a business opportunity and you're trying to find a way to make it mutually beneficial, it's always a win, right? Especially long term. So I really agree with that. So, hey, I want to thank you for being a part of the show. I think it's great. We're coming down to the end of the show now. So I'm going to pivot a little bit, ask you a couple more questions. I really appreciate what you said about building out a team, starting to think about doing business differently, right? Because everybody has the same approach when it comes to a short sale, or in this case, an REO, or maybe just a listing that is a little distressed, and you have multiple buyers competing for that opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. So I really love what you said about finding ways to evolve and do business differently so that you can create an advantage for yourself. So how are you planning to differentiate yourself next year so that you can create an advantage for yourself and your team?
I cannot tell you. I am an everyday ideas person, right? I don't stick to it because I go like 100 miles in a second and then I have to come back and then I just don't move. My personality is just not your typical REO agent or distressed property agent. That will tell you. I'm going to tell you I'm going to share all my list of my plans. Of course not, because, I'm an agent and everybody's, competing here. And I'm very straightforward. I'm very blunt. I'm not the typical like, family, we're going to do this. No, we're going to play the cards and we're going to try to be the best, right? And win. We all want to win. But I think my thing is always going to be my connection with the people. I mean, I connect. It's just that. And you won't be able to do the same because you're one person and I'm one person, right? I have Vanessa's thing here, and I really go one-on-one. A lot of people tell me, and my coach and my broker, and a lot of people tell me, Vanessa, why you do that? That phone, you don't need. And I say, I know. It's just, that's me. I'm going to do that. I'm the one that is going to give this news. Either, it's bad or good, but to me that is important. And I know my assistant could do it, my executive assistant could do it. I want to do it. Okay. Like so it's just how I am. I may not have the most, wonderful accent out there. I may not have like this whole, and I'm fine by it.
You and me both.
Listen, and I may not have this whole system that you love it, A, B, C, D, and color coded and blah. I don't have it. I don't have. You come to my office, friend. You're like, oh my gosh, how you? And I know where everything, because that's how I remember. And you go to my phone book, and you're gonna see Marjorie with the red shirt and blah blah blah. And you're gonna laugh because you're gonna be like, oh my god, why you need to know the red shirt? Because that's something I remember. Okay, but you are gonna see me getting off my car and hugging the last short sale borrower I closed, or the tenant that I had to evict, and having coffee with them. And I do this. I love this. This is my passion. This is not my job. I'm not an investor savvy. I actually don't love investors like they probably would love, because sometimes they just want it all and they don't understand that's not how it works. But I do have and they are not loyal. I love loyalty. I think that's what the thing that I have only 2 investors that I will tell you that they are loyal. And those are my first go-to investors all the time. And yes, I have 100 phone calls. But you know what? Loyalty is so important. I think that's how I connect with my sellers, with my short sale sellers, with my borrowers that get foreclosed, and with my banks. And people don't believe that.
Sure.
I didn't send an application to a bank. I never tried to look for, I was not an REO agent. And I always say, gosh, I hate those REO agents. It's just so complicated, blah, blah, blah. And I don't like paperwork, so I didn't want to do these BPOs or whatever. And I actually got a phone call. And my loyalty to these people that at the beginning I thought they were I was like, is this for real? Or this is like an undercover movie? They are trying to, something like, I didn't even know who I was talking on the phone. I didn't believe he was a CEO calling me from French. I was like, yeah, right. And I'm Wonder Woman. So, yeah, for real. I tell you. And he was laughing. He said, you know what? You're very
that's classic.
He was very nice.
I can see that though, right? When you get a phone call like that, right?
Yeah. And I was like.
The person from Nigeria telling you that you just won $10 million and you need to wire 10,000 in order to receive the money.
Yeah. And you know what? I have been in situations where I had offers of multiple offers. I won't disclose how great they are, but are beautiful and better than probably what I got from my bank people, but I'm loyal to them because they gave me an opportunity. I'm grateful. I am really, and I always say, don't bite the hand of the person or who is feeding you. Don't buy it because you never know.
Yeah.
And the grass is never greener on the other side. So I speak to my people. I'm very loyal. I love them, and I do the same with the people. So what I will do different this time, I would just add more compassion, because I think these past 2-3 years,
I like that. I like that. That's a good
transaction, because it was a lot of transactions coming, right? A lot of REOs. I didn't have to look anymore. They were falling on my desk. So now, I guess it was a big lesson, and whoever really is going after the cheese, I think we have to just bring back the relationship, the feelings, the compassion. The whole thing is, when you put that and bring that on the table, the money, the success, everything is going to follow. It's going to come to you.
I really appreciate that. I think that's a great way to wrap this up, right, is to humanize the process. Right, we can't do business without. I like how you put it about without the compassion, but I also think it's really important that we still, in real estate can be a very transactional business, right?
Yes, you become one robot. Yeah, machine.
Yep. Especially if you're process oriented and systems oriented, and you have multiple people involved in managing these processes, right? So I really like what you said. It's just about making sure that, so for you, next year, the way that you intend on differentiating yourself is by bringing compassion back into the transactions, or really focusing on the relationship aspect of that transaction, right? And I think that's smart, because
it's not going to be
that way.
Yeah. Next year, I think for everybody who's smart enough and want to just keep going and keep fighting and keep the run, right? Maintaining the run it's not going to be 130 Aspen and Syosset. It's going to be Maria Hernandez. You're going back to the person or the bank. Even when you're dealing with the bank, when you're dealing with the short sale negotiator, the whole time that we had before, so what happens? So you're denying the BPO? You probably won't do that anymore. This time you're probably going to say, hey, how are you? How's the family? We went through crazy times, right? We're bringing that back.
Right. Yeah. Relational, personal, right? Personalizing the process. Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's smart. That's very, very smart. Well, hey, Vanessa, you've been a great guest. I really appreciate having you on. This has been I think it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate you being on, because typically we're talking predominantly about apartment buildings and multifamily assets, and managing those assets, and also asset management, depending on the layer involved. I think this has been kind of a cool conversation, because there's a lot of speculation around foreclosures, especially with all this pent up supply that everybody keeps talking about. You've been able to speak to that and also comment that, hey, next year we're probably going to start seeing a lot of that pent up supply start to unravel, right? And start to release itself out into the marketplace. And your comment is, hey, for those that can position themselves in a different way, in your case, it's bringing more compassion, right, to the transaction. Or another way to put it is to humanize the transaction again, right? Start making it personal, depending on, irrespective of the parties involved, but to differentiate yourself by personalizing that whole process and really having an interest in the people that you're doing business with. And I think that's a really big takeaway. So for that, I want to thank you for being on. You've been a great guest. Before I ask you to share the best way for people to find you, what is the one question that you have of me that you think can add some value to our audience?
From you, I was doing some research about you. I told my assistant, find him, because, and I had she was like, oh, they're great guests. It's a great thing. Now, let me ask you, and I think this is for when I share this podcast to my people here, my consumers and the people here in Long Island.
Sure.
I want you to give us a briefly bio, who you are, what do you do, and why you are doing this podcast.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. That's a great question. So, my name is John Brackett. Okay, I'm the CEO of Fidelity Business Partners, and what we do is we build great apartment communities. In a nutshell, that is our purpose, right? So the idea is finding ways to positively impact our communities, right, and improve how people live, except our tool for doing that is real estate, right? And the reason why I do this podcast is my team and my staff, our employees, they know what our purpose is. It's really clear and it's very simple. It's we build great apartment communities and we improve how people live, right? And that's why we do that. This podcast is merely an extension of our purpose. So these are things that we communicate to our team internally. Now I've just taken that message and I'm sharing that message with more people with the hopes that, I can interview people like yourself and you can come on and you're sharing how you're using real estate as a vehicle to also improve how people are living, right? And your comment around compassion and relationship is really an extension of that, which is why I think this is a great show and why you were invited to be on, because your message resonates with what we do, right? So if you think about a traditional apartment building in your community, right? Maybe something that's a little bit of an eyesore today. Okay, you drive by this thing all the time. It's been there for 10, 15 years. Maybe it's even a community where you're getting a lot of negative feedback on, right? Mm-hmm. We buy those apartment buildings and then we convert them into communities, literally, that people can then appreciate. And the motto is, by us doing that, we improve how people live, not only within inside those communities, but also in the surrounding area, right? And that's why we launched this podcast, or I did.
Okay, so thank you. You know what? Goes back to the whole thing. So now with this podcast, you are sharing greatness and sunlight out of, coming out of adversity or any obstacle and become, whatever was an obstacle, make it a great thing, a positive thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a great way, right? Because you also need some fantastic people, in this case, like yourself, but also people that resonate with being able to use real estate as a tool to positively influence a community, right? I mean, it's just a great opportunity to do that.
Yes, life in general.
Life in general. It is. So hopefully that makes sense.
So do you see what you do? You even improve Poppy's life. The pet's life.
Oh, the pet's life.
Yes, because you have to go from the big to the small, but from the small to the big. Everything goes together.
Yeah, it does. Everything goes together. No, you're absolutely right? I mean, in some way, we're all connected, right? In some way, in some manner. Yeah, we all have some form of connection. So I really agree with that. But that's why, this is merely an extension of what I communicate internally to our teams, right? It's merely an extension of that communication.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So how do people find you, Vanessa? What is the best way that people can find you?
I mean, always myself. You can always call me if you have any question or whatever you need. 631-704-7080. 631-704-7080. Text, phone call, simple. Myself, and I always give my direct phone. Like I say, real estate is not my business, is not my job, it's my lifestyle. So I cannot give you my office number because I always want to be connected. So
I like that. Hey, well, you've been a great guest. I want to wish you continued success, and I look forward to having another conversation with you next year to see how this has played out, right? How our conversation has played out. I think it'd be a very fun conversation.
And I want you to keep building and to keep communities.
Of course. That's the whole idea, right? So,
thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I want to wish you continued success, and you have a good one, okay?
Thank you.
Clarity of purpose creates our greatest competitive advantage. When we transform apartment buildings to thriving communities, we improve how people live and create assets with high profit margins. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this up with a friend. I'm John Brackett, bringing you things you can implement right away.